Well, we are live, and as you can see, I'm not Ashley Buckhold. Uh, Ashley he's out in Oregon right now. Actually, he's taking a little bit of time off. Spent some time. He was in Bend, Oregon, and he's on his way over to Portland to go visit a few friends in Portland right now. Where are you at, Matt? You're in your car.
I'm in King, North Carolina.
King, North Carolina.
That's near Winston-Salem. I'm getting ready to spend the afternoon with my dad, who's in a senior living place.
Nice. Oh, you just went dark on us. There you are again. So we're talking, getting ready for the show, and you were talking about something you saw on the road. So, Matt Layman, from the road, what can you report? What'd you find? Oh, you're on mute. Hey, Matt, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Oh, and he's gone. Well, I can bring you up to speed a little bit on what we're seeing in the lumber market.
Here we go.
There you go. All right. So from the road, what did you
From
see?
the road, there was a place that was a chain yard, contractor yard. I'd never even seen before, just behind trees. And there was just the view that I had. It looked like just acres and acres, football fields and football field of lumber and trusses that were manufactured. Some a little bit older, just started to turn a little bit, but it was unbelievable at the space this place had. It was, and I got to thinking about that's probably not abnormal. That's probably what a big lumber yard looks like with truss plant on it. What the operation looks like in this kind of market. It's I was driving down the road for about 30 minutes on the interstate. I think I passed more lumber trucks never had before making this trip. And I try to go between 12 and 2 every day. And I saw about 15 loads of lumber trusses in half hours on the road. So that's me we're going past each other 140 miles an hour. And that many of them came by in 30 minutes. It was just a lot of lumber on the road. It was pretty wild.
Well, I mean, this has been a wild ride. Everything turned on the expiration of November futures. So that happened on November 15th. So here we sit today, the 16th, I think, today. Um, 31 days later, and prices doubled in 31 days.
Yeah.
What are the mechanics?
Fallout from that has been, I've seen it most in the multifamily sector, where people just, when the first week that we had the first $100 up, people just said, nope, not going to pay it. Wanted that last week's price, they didn't get it. Now each week another group of people that goes to that pile of, I wanted to buy it, I'm not going to pay this price. So I think we're hitting some price thresholds on the multifamily side anyway. But on the contrasting side of that is those guys are bought for 6 months out. They got wood in warehouses. They're committed. They got it all done, and they want to take more. In fact, what I've talked to, they're probably short. They haven't bought everything they need to because they don't believe the market's going to stay up, and they're not going to pay $1,200 for 2x4s when they took the orders with that's kind of they're breaking, or maybe you lose a little money. But I think they'll take a chance to ride it out.
So let's just talk quick about the mechanics that cause this phenomenon in the market. And it's that the market is short, and it's not in the very short term that it's short, but what you have are these projects that were in the works, in the plans for 2 years. Like, there's no one can deny the United States is underbuilt as far as the number of housing units we need. That is a true statement, and all the economists will agree with that. So if you're a developer, you go out and you acquire the land and you do the survey, you get your building designed, you group your contractor and subcontractors together. This doesn't happen in a week's time frame. I mean, this happens 24 months ahead before you even break ground, right? So
Right.
This market was short for the previous 2 years. So now, as these contracts get let and you get closer and closer to construction date, um, they become very sensitive to what's happening in the lumber market, and they start to pay attention. And they're like, okay, when are we going to procure this material for this project? So everything was looking really good for these multifamily builders this fall. Prices had come off the. Oh, well, I'll keep talking while Matt comes back. The prices had come off their highs. Um, they began to prices came off their highs. They kind of stabilized in a smaller range, and things were looking pretty good. And then on November 15th, November futures expired, and something triggered it, and a round of buying took place. And I'm guessing that buying was first quarter kind of needs. Now, as the prices escalated, we started to get into the price range that these projects we were exceeding the forecasted prices for the projects that the projects used for their lumber costs, and it starts pulling more people into the market because they don't want to lose money. And human nature says whatever was in my immediate past is going to continue on into perpetuity. So all of a sudden you've got guys maybe buying for second quarter needs. And I think Matt, you said you've heard about that, right?
Yep, I've seen in North Carolina the truss plants are buying is they're buying as far out as they can buy. They physically hold space for it, and that's their order file. It's um, it's quite a phenomenon with everybody just almost keeping the maximum inventory they can and wanting more.
Yeah. So that there's a short part of this story, which is the wrap up. You end up with, say, 3 to 4, maybe 5, 6 months of lumber buying needs that has been compressed potentially into a 1 month period. So
Exactly. If you think about it, we've been in an up market since the second half of August. We haven't pulled back at all. We've been this bull market is well established, and it's just, and some people have been looking for a pullback to buy. We're not getting it, and the only explanation for a market that's been going up that long and this strong is buyers have to be accumulating inventory. They're
oh, for
not
sure.
liquidating inventory because the prices on the mills, the pressures on the buy side, and these guys are just sticking with the program. Just every day keeps better and better, so they're not backing off. Yeah, but as you got to think about the length of the run of the bull market is about 4 or 5 months. It's time for it to catch your breath.
Yeah, and I think there was a little bit. The market gave a little head fake there in late October, November,
Yeah,
and people looked like, okay, here's the opportunity. I'm going to work my inventory down, and then in late December, maybe beginning of the year, I'll start building it back up for that spring. And maybe the whole, not just the short business that I talked about, that long term developer kind of business, but even the lumber dealers let their inventories go down. And now we're into this massive accumulation mode.
yeah. And if it's panic buying, we know that ends, and it isn't pretty.
Now, so yeah, what's a buyer to do right now? It's you find yourself in a bit of a tough spot. You obviously want to you don't want to lose money on a project, right?
And
So
some of them sometimes I get sucked out of the of what the market's going to do, and I base everything I think about the market on what the FTP looks like it's going to do in the future. And right now, it looks to me like it's going to be firm until the end of February, then get a little break, and then a pop back up, and then down again from in May. But I think it's a good possibility we could see a high this year in March instead of May. If this market's really getting overbought like I think it is, then we could see an influx of completions and Some of those things are just waiting on bathtubs and spigots and sinks to come in so they can close those homes. We could get a flurry of first order completions that makes it look like the housing market has kind of caught up and people back off of it. We could get oversupplied for just a little bit.
So
But I
what
think we've got. I think the surprise this year is to the downside, not to the upside.
what could what are certain things that could hold the market back? Um, I think you and I talked. We generally have the capacity to build about 1.3, maybe a little more housing starts. Um,
Yep.
let's say labor breaks free and we actually find some more hammer swingers. What is that going to do?
Well, our completions rate for the last half a decade has been at 1.2, 1.3 million. So this housing market's gone through a period of not having labor problems and still only getting the same amount complete. So I I kind of I can't really blame it on the labor. I don't think I think it's just a noisy thing everybody says, and but everybody wants to get more labor, but there's a limited capacity of like trusses, for example. I mean, there's only certain the concrete, the there's the plumbing, the electrical, all that stuff. Everybody's not sitting on extra capacity looking for an outlet to blow it off into the housing market. I mean, there's a limit to what we can do, and I think at one point that 1.3 or maybe even if you bump it up to 1.5, that's still not 1.7 worth of starts and framing packages we're doing on a monthly basis.
So I
So
was just
I've
at,
been covering it. I'm calling it out covering the kick.
well, I was at the NRLA show, and my booth was next to a window manufacturer booth, and those guys, they were not selling more windows. They were talking to their customers and trying to appease their customers and saying this is as much as we're going to be able to get out this year.
Right. And you think that at some point that the home builders got to go, well, we'd like to build or we can sell 2 million houses. So I'm going to say we're going to build 2 million houses because we've got them sold. That assumes everybody in the pipeline is going to give them 2 million houses worth of product. And it's not out there. The whole, not just the lumber package, but the entire package to build a home. There's not enough supply, but to build about 1,000,003 houses a year. So
Yeah.
in essence, the lumber market is already oversupplied. What we can actually do, what we use, and we're buying it to make the shortage even worse. So that's why it's just too obvious. There's a lot of pre-buying and spec buying and inventory accumulation going on for fear of having another year like last year.
Well, now in addition to I talked about earlier that November 15th date was the turn and this thing started taking off. Now, of course, we had the supply or the transportation disruption in there out of British Columbia. I mean, all indicators are Western Canada is not going to be making any more lumber. This wood's going to be coming out of the south. The need comes from the south, or the supply will be coming from the south. What are you hearing about more production and when that'll be available?
For South?
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about? No. There's a mill in. I'm going to say probably 90% of it is coming from the south, but it's spread out probably over the next 18 months. And the first of it starting in January. I think there's a mill over in East Texas starting up in the first year. So, well, we're still a couple of months from getting any wood out of that place, which is I think it's a 500 billion square feet board foot mill that they'll probably crank up about half 50% of capacity. And so it's not like it's going to be any influx of stuff coming out. But over the next 18 months, I think you can expect steady, you know, every other month you might have a mill open that's just kind of coming in line to get them done.
Yeah. So it just seems bizarre to me. we seem to have, we're producing about as much as we can produce. We're consuming at a rate that is definitely governed by the number of labor and other materials, yet we still seem to be going up. So, like, what's the canary in the coal mine to keep our eyes out for?
Well, this is to me. This is it. Um, I think what we're experiencing right now is we're experiencing the middle of the process of panic buying and building and accumulating inventory. And we did that in April last year and got away with it somewhat because it was right at the peak of building season, the beginning of the building season. You start doing it right now, the beginning of winter. It's the wrong time of year to be betting on demand starting to go up. I mean, it's temperatures are warmer, but you can talk about all the advantages of that. But look at all the tornadoes and devastation that's been created from just because it's been warmer, and we're enjoying this building season. And got to keep that in mind too. There's going to be a lot of lumber needed for where these tornadoes have gone. You know, it's at some point, but it's not going to be January or February. It's going to be next fall. Things get cleaned up.
Yeah, it just seems like we can't get ahead of the pace. So we have a question here. What about OSB capacity? I mean, I know Royal Martin has that big mill that's going to get going. Um, what's your read on OSB?
Um, I think OSB's at a place where it, it's just slightly undersupplied for for the way that we're buying it right now, which is an inventory accumulation and buying at a pace of 1,700,000 starts. Um, I think they're almost keeping up with that. So I think compared to demand, and I mean I just had this thought compared to demand between lumber and OSB that OSB is going to continue to be in shorter supply or tighter supply than lumber will be.
Really? So, all right, another question, and this comes from my experience out at that NRLA show. The number of people that I was talking to with regards to Euro lumber and Brazilian pine plywood, it it's becoming a much more readily accepted product. Um, like it's hard. Euro, for instance, is very hard to argue the quality of the product. The engineering specs can, the design values can definitely, you can dispute that. But
Well, they passed the test.
how do we assess that? I mean, on our platform, we see Euro and Brazilian pine being bought and sold every day.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think it's already passed the test of being grade worthy. So I mean, it's coming, and there's no reason to think that not more of it's not going to come at these kind of prices.
Absolutely. And I mean, I haven't looked into it, but is there going to be any shipping constraints on that? Or are they going to be able to get as much as they want over here?
I don't know, but have you heard the thing about the way the shipping the numbers look now? I've got a guy, a buddy that works at a logistics firm. At any moment, he can pop up and see there's a live, there's actually an app to see what the ships are. But what they've done now is they're telling the ships to park 100 miles to 1,000 miles offshore and wait. So when you take a picture of the boats in the port, all you see is what's between you and the horizon. And that's about 1/3 of the ships that are anchored out there. So there's another, there's at one point, there's 30 ships on the picture and 62 anchored at sea. That was the beginning of the week. So is it going to get better? I don't. I can't determine what it is on these boats that we got to have so badly. It's so much of all of a sudden.
Um, yeah, you know what? There's,
I mean,
well, look,
I'm not missing a thing in my house waiting on something off of the ship.
so here's something that, I mean, this is in the news today. I heard it on the radio when I was coming in. Powell said, the Fed chair, that inflation he thought was going to be transitory appears to be a little more sticky. Um, inflation is nothing more than more money chasing fewer goods. It gets fixed one of two ways. You take less, remove some money from the system. I don't think that's going to be what happens, or you add more goods to the system. That sounds like that's a little more challenging with this shipping environment. Um,
Yeah,
so,
so that means that part of the government solution or the Fed solution is to keep cramming stuff back down our throat, assuming we'll just keep on buying it. So they just keep on shoving it at us. It's like getting us addicted to it.
well, it
Conspiracy theory.
what's going to be challenging, I think, as we start to become less accommodative, where they try to do something with the inflation, is that we put the money into people's hands across the board, and once we start pulling that money back, it's going to expose the dichotomy of the rich.
Yeah, that gap's going to get wider and wider between reality and having the free cheese every month.
Yeah. So, but let's take this back to lumber. So, Matt Layman, you're a lumber buyer today, and you're sitting there, and lumber's approximately $1,000, maybe a little more for this, a little less for that. You've got business coming. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You could sell as much as you want. What do you do as a buyer? What's your strategy?
Well, I would assume that if I had taken my own advice and bought through February in the end of October, beginning of November, I'd be sitting pretty. But I'm going to assume that I didn't do that. If I just said I bought 6 weeks worth of wood because that's all the space that I have.
Well, hang on.
And so,
Before you go there, let's talk about that. If you took your own advice and you bought through the end of February, now you're sitting here and you're like, okay, I've got wood on the ground. I've got wood coming. I'm covered through February, but holy smokes, I look out at the March futures contract and it's trading $1,100. May's trading, $10.50. What's a guy going to do? I mean,
I would look at my inventory and say, what do I need to be solved between now and the end of February? And so if you had to get out of the market day, how much would you have to buy to get through the end of February? And then I'd sit it out.
You'd sit
And
it out?
I'd sit it out till the middle of February. And then when you're down to 2 weeks worth of inventory in the middle of February, then look at getting back in and roll it. It's not a roll of the dice, but I think we're going to have a place where we're going to have a softness in January just from an exhale, and it's going to leave us a little bit of a valley that's going to a place to fill in and keep those needs covered. But I think we got to look at the market very closely at the time and see if it doesn't look like it's about ready to fall apart.
All right. I mean,
So I would position myself for the possibility of an early top, having a leaner inventory versus being oversupplied going into March.
So if you took your advice, you're sitting back drinking some eggnog today. If you didn't take your advice, you're working kind of hard to get yourself pressed out a little bit, and you want to kind of take a look at things come January 15th. Give yourself 30 days. Is that about right?
Unless something is radically changed to what I think with the plan of trying to be out of my inventory by the end of February.
All right. So let's flip the script. What if you're a seller right now?
Take everything they offer you. There's at some point, a guy, the mill manager, told me this last year, and he said that at some point you just said, I want you to buy this because I'm telling you, it's 6 week shipment out, and the price is $1,200. I don't think it's a good risk for you to take. And when a mill manager thinks that about what he's trying to sell you, you should listen and not take that advice and not make that purchase. But I wouldn't buy anything that's 6 week shipment. I try to buy everything that's going to ship within 2 weeks and pay premium.
It's interesting. I hear or read some commentary just a couple days ago on LinkedIn talking about the mills doing price gouging. If I'm in the mills camp on this, their job is to slow the pace of sales as their order file moves out. So they could do one of two things. They could raise their price to try to slow the sales, or just stop selling. Both of them is
Yeah,
going to
and it just
both of
gets
them
more
makes the
valuable
buyers
every day
mad.
it sits there. So at some point, it becomes the not having an order file becomes more valuable than the part of the order file that you do have.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm about to write about that.
All right. Well, I think we're probably at starting to get a little pause. That's my sense, at least. Maybe a little bit of a pause in the activity of buying, and it's more about the fact that prompt wood's not available. Shipment times have extended out. We're looking at the holidays coming in. The time between Christmas and New Year's is always a little goofy.
Yeah.
I think people are licking their chops or licking their wounds a little bit in here. There's definitely this. I mean, unprecedented, fastest move ever. We doubled prices, $500, 1,000 in basically in 30 days.
There are a lot of people that went into this rally we're in right now still holding wood from the last rally last spring, still holding some of that high price wood from May. That's phenomenal. That things that as much busy as it seems like, that you would think that everything that you bought last May was turned a long time ago.
You would think.
But
So,
something happened to
well,
things just don't match up, with the volume number that's we're going through and acting like we have and pricing for.
I think one of the things we need to take away from the last rally is the lumber market on a very short term basis is inelastic, meaning you can't sell from an empty pot. You're going to pay whatever the price is, right? But it right sizes itself quite quickly as soon as everyone's covered. This thing will go down as fast or faster than it came up.
Yeah, and those things seem like they always happen within the year. It's not like a waiting for it 5 years later to happen. It's pretty quick.
Right. So this is tough. I wish it would be nice to have the crystal ball. It'd be nice to be sitting on a pile of lumber right now. I guess the best advice out there is be careful. Be careful with your counterparties. Make sure everyone is doing what they say they're going to do. Get as much information as you can every day. That's what we're doing here at Materials Exchange. The more information we can put, the more information we can put in your hands.
One piece of advice that I'd offer is, if you find yourself in a spot where you just have to buy something because you just ran out, you misjudged it, or you got a big order for it, you just ran out. It is so critical that you recognize that need as soon as you can and buy it as soon as you can. Preferably earlier in the week, but if it happens, it shows up on Thursday, buy it Thursday, because you're gonna every day you buy it, you're gonna beat a higher print that's gonna be coming for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And it'll save you it'll save you money just to buy early in the day and early in the week if you get a chance to do that.
Yeah, hesitating is not your friend right now, that's for sure. So look, just want to reiterate, Materials Exchange is here to help you with your business. We're bringing you great industry insight from leaders like Matt Layman, like Greg Kuda on Tuesdays with our futures talk, Greg Riley and Matt Beamer on Wednesdays. And tomorrow in our smart market, we've got a very interesting guest. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking to someone from the hardwood market. And while it may not pertain to you directly in your business, I think it's extremely important to every now and then stick your head outside of your little ecosphere and say, what else is going on? Because guess which building products matter to the hardwood market? Cabinets, flooring,
a lot.
A whole lot. So yeah, tomorrow's guest, very interesting fellow. We're going to have a good chat about what's happening in hardwood. Matt, appreciate you taking time out of your day on your way to see your
pleasure. Thank you all for coming too.
And we'll see you next Thursday. Ashley will be back in the seat next Thursday. Well, next Thursday that's the 23rd. Next Thursday is the 23rd. We'll have this show and then kick off our Christmas holiday.
It might have to be an eggnog show.
Hey, nothing wrong with a little eggnog. All right. Take care, everyone. Matt, appreciate it. And we'll see
Thanks,
everyone
guys.
next Thursday.